Hello everyone, welcome back. So, way back in our first video, let me rephrase that. It was in our third video. Whenever we started this, I made a huge mistake. I was telling you guys all about how you want to make variables for your speed, yet I just put in numbers here. This is not used at all. So to show you what I meant when I said that you need to put variables here because it is less sloppy. But here I am being sloppy. There we go. So now, what this does is when I make this a public, that's not how you spell, when you make this a public variable, you can go into Unity, you can click on our cube here, and you can edit the variable without having to go back to the code. So let's say I wanted to make this 15. I just save, press play, and now I'm moving so much faster. But we don't want that, we'll just keep it 5 for now. Keep things nice and slow. So, moving on, in this video we'll be doing physics. We'll be putting some constraints. Since without these, we can just disappear off of the screen. And I want to keep this all in these borders. So this isn't going to need any kind of coding. We're just going to add some components, some physics to our objects. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create another 3D object, make another cube. Let's make this 10, that's not 10, 20 by 5, get nice and big, get 25. We want it to cover the entire bottom portion of this screen. Put that like right here. And we're going to change the name. We're going to call this barrier. So with our barrier, what we want to do is we want to go into our component up here. We want to add some physics. Now even though this is a 2D game, we can't add 2D physics because the cube is a 3D object and it will not work. So we want to go to physics, we want to add a box collider, and that's all we want to do with our barrier. Now in our box here, we want to do the same thing. Add a box collider, and I'm going to add a rigid body just to demonstrate what it can do. Now when you go over here to the inspector, you can go here to the rigid body, and you can change mass, drag, you can even turn on gravity. I'm going to keep gravity on just to show you what, you guys obviously know what gravity is, but that's what gravity does if you leave it on. It just falls in the y-axis down. But we don't want that. We want to keep that off, and we want to put on some constraints. We don't want it rotating on collision because Unity has some fancy physics, so if you collide at certain angles, you could get some crazy, it could bounce off. We don't want any of that. We don't want any rotation, and we don't want it leaving its Z plane. So what happens now is we have collision. It cannot pass through. There, I'll make that a color. So with our barrier here, since we have a barrier and I don't want to make another one, we're going to go to prefabs. We're going to create another prefab. we are going to create a prefab for our barrier. And since this is already completed, I should probably add a texture, but oh well. I'm going to drag that to our barrier, and we're going to drag that up here. And we're going to leave that about here. That's good. So when we play, oh, this is sloppy looking. We've got collision here. We've got collision here. So now there are constraints. We should probably zoom out a bit and fix our numbers just for the sake of making this quick. I don't need it to be exact, I just need it to be bigger. So let's just make this 30 or so and put that about there. It should look less sloppy. There we go. We keep it in.